Is the Diablo known as the Diablo territory, all the flower streets.
Agner Medrano shows us around Escondido.
Diablos are all in the flower streets on the east side of town. West Side Gang is all the number streets and the old Escondido area.
As a former gang member, he's familiar with the gang activity and violence that has plagued the city.
Mission is another active street too. There's a few memorials on that side. Astor right here used to be like the gang hangout for the Diablos, the 700 block that they call it.
We stop at one of the most recent memorials.
Where we're gonna go, this is the memorial site of one of the young kid that got killed about a month ago.
Caden Allen Romo died at a hospital after being stabbed in a street fight. Police said the fight was gang-related and arrested 2 teenage boys. Gang violence took Romo's life. Others live with lifelong consequences.
And we were just fighting for a long time until one of them, pulls out a gun and shoots. I stick my arm out so it could hit my hand. And then they let a shot off, and after the shot, they got back in the car and ran.
Concerned for his safety, this young man agreed to an interview without revealing his identity. Earlier this year, he was shot outside of his home. The bullet struck his back, ultimately leaving him paralyzed from the waist down for the rest of his life.
It was really life-changing. I couldn't, everything that I was able to do back then, I'm trying to really learn how to do everything on my own now. But everything's going better,
From January to June of this year, Escondido police have made 41 juvenile crime arrests. That's a faster pace than in 2023, when they made 57 arrests over the whole year.
In the last year or so, we've been seeing a lot more gang activity with our juveniles.
Ryan Hicks is a lieutenant in charge of investigations with Escondido police.
These kids are getting in fights, and they're carrying knives, and they're carrying guns, and they're carrying improvised weapons to stab with, and so it turns what would have just been a fight amongst teenagers into a homicide or an attempt homicide.
Hicks says Escondido police had a gang enforcement team a few years ago, but it was cut due to staffing problems and because gang crime had gone down.
So obviously patrol always has to come first, and so we had to get rid of that enforcement team, and then it was just left up to the patrol officers to do gang enforcement.
Now gang enforcement is coming back with a team of 2 officers who will also do fentanyl enforcement.
One of the officers is fluent in Spanish, which is also important to us, so they can speak to a lot of the parents if they're not English speaking. And their job is just to go out and make contact with these kids.
While police are trying to get ahead of any more gang-related crimes, community advocate Agner Medrano says the problem has deeper roots. He says a lack of resources for youth is an ingredient for gangs to rise.
Where there's poverty, where there's division, where there's drugs, where there's guns, all that's a element for gangs.
There are not enough resources. Our city is facing a huge budget deficit.
Escondido council member Consuelo Martinez says gaps in the city's budget have prevented any kind of expansion of youth and community resources. So she's put out a call for creativity.
To say, okay, we might not have unlimited resources, but we do have our community, and our community do have resources. They have creative ideas. We're innovative in our city. So let's come together and really try to support our youth and really deter this violence and say, this is not okay. We don't want violence in our community.
Medrano says when he was in a gang, he was a young boy who needed some guidance, a need he still sees today.
We need to be mentors to our kids, our youth, Sometimes as adults, we need to take responsibility of our village, This is our village, and at the end of the day, what can we do to help our youth?
Medrano says the change can fall on anyone's hands.
But I think we need to mentor our community. You know what I'm saying? We can't say, oh, that's the cops' jobs, that's the nonprofit. It's all of our jobs,
Tania Thorne, KPBS News.